Hello, friends. I'm Harry. Here we breathe life into letters left unread, wartime confessions, secret farewells, stolen moments of passion. Lean in and let these voices from another era speak directly to your heart. Lost letter. The sea took the ship, but not my words. A letter found in a bottle, washed ashore in Nova Scotia, 1913. My dearest Eleanor, I am writing this as the lights go out one by one, and I need you to know that I chose to stay behind not because I am brave, but because I am a coward who cannot bear to live knowing I took a place that belonged to a child. The ship is singing now, a low, terrible song as she breaks apart beneath us. Strange how something so grand and mighty can sound so fragile in her final moments. I have perhaps 20 minutes, maybe less, before the Atlantic claims what's left of us. 20 minutes to tell you everything I should have said when we walked along the Thames last spring, when the cherry blossoms fell like snow and you laughed at my clumsy attempt to catch them for you. I'm in the wireless room. Poor Phillips is still at his key, tapping out our position, though no one answers anymore. His hands shake, but he keeps sending. CQD, CQD, MGY. The same three letters over and over. I suppose we all have our ways of refusing to surrender. The water is up to my ankles now. It's so cold it burns. I've wrapped this letter in the oilcloth from my camera case, the same camera I was so excited to bring to capture our new life in America. There are photographs in here with you, the one of you feeding the ducks in Hyde Park. You smile when you didn't know I was watching. I thought I'd have a lifetime to take more pictures. Funny how certain you can be about having time. Do you remember what you said when I proposed? You laughed. Not at me, never at me, but at how serious I'd become. "Oh, William," you said, "you look like you're about to deliver a funeral oration instead of asking me to marry you." You were right. I've always been too serious about the wrong things and not serious enough about what mattered. I should have been more serious about the way you hummed while you made tea, about the way you always wore your lucky blue ribbon on Sundays, about how you saved every letter I sent, even the boring ones about my work at the shipping office. Oh, the irony of that now. I should have been more serious about telling you every day that you were the finest thing that ever happened to me. The band was playing on deck earlier, "Nearer, my God, to Thee," though some say it was autumn. I couldn't tell. The sound kept getting swallowed by the screams and the groaning metal and the hiss of steam escaping from somewhere deep in her belly. But they kept playing until the water reached their instruments. There's something to be said for musicians. They know how to find beauty even when the world is ending. I keep thinking about our last conversation. You were worried about the crossing, remember? You said ships that called themselves unsinkable tempted fate. I kissed your forehead and promised I'd write every day. "Don't be silly, Eleanor," I said. "It's only 5 days, and then I'll cable you the moment we dock." Such certainty I had. Such stupid, absolute certainty. The truth is, I wasn't supposed to be on this ship at all. Mr. Henderson, you remember him? The thin man from the office who always smelled like tobacco and regret. He was meant to go. Company business in New York. But his wife took ill the night before we sailed, and he begged me to take his place. "Just this once, William," he said. "Margaret's never been this sick, and I can't leave her." I said yes because I thought it was the right thing to do, because I thought it would advance my career because I thought, God help me, it would be an adventure, something to tell our children about someday. Once, before you were born, your father sailed on the finest ship in the world. Mrs. Henderson recovered completely. The cable came through yesterday morning. She was up and about, asking for her husband and wondering why he hadn't kissed her goodbye. He'll read about this in the papers tomorrow. He'll know that kindness can kill you just as sure as cruelty can. But I'm not angry with him. How could I be? If Margaret had been you, lying fevered in our bed, I would have done the same thing. I would have stayed. I would have held your hand and counted your breath and bargained with whatever gods might listen. I would have missed every ship in the harbor. The lights just flickered. We don't have much longer now. Eleanor, I need to tell you about tonight, about what it's been like. Not the terror, you don't need to carry that, but the other things, the way people showed who they really were when everything else got stripped away. I saw old Mr. Strauss help his wife into her corset because her hands were shaken too badly to manage the hooks. I saw a mother singing lullabies to her baby while the deck tilted steeper and steeper beneath her feet. I saw stewards directing people to the boats even as the water rose around their own waists. I saw men step back from the lifeboats to make room for strangers' children. And yes, I saw cowardice too. Men who pushed past women. Men who hid in staterooms hoping to be forgotten until rescue came. Men who argued with officers and tried to bribe their way into boats. I'm not painting this prettier than it was, but Eleanor, the courage I witnessed tonight, the ordinary, everyday courage of people just trying to do right by each other when doing right meant dying. It's made me believe in humanity in a way I never did before. There was a woman, Mrs. Kelly, traveling alone with her 3 little ones, Irish, 3rd class. When the steward told her the boats were for first-class passengers only, she just stood there holding her baby, her other children pressed against her skirts. She didn't argue. She didn't weep. She just nodded like she'd expected it. I couldn't bear it. I took off my first-class jacket, the one you helped me pick out, the one you said made me look distinguished, and I wrapped it around her shoulders. Now you're first class, I told her. The steward looked at me like I'd lost my mind, but he helped them into the boat. The last I saw of Mrs. Kelly, she was looking back at the ship with such sorrow in her eyes, as if she knew what it cost for her children to live. That's when I understood I couldn't get into a boat myself. Not because the officers wouldn't let me. There was confusion enough that I might have slipped through, but because I'd given my place away, and taking someone else's would have made Mrs. Kelly's sacrifice meaningless. Do you see? I'm not dying as a hero, Eleanor. I'm dying because I made a choice and I have to live with it, or not live with it, as the case may be. That's the only honor I can claim tonight, the honor of consistency. The ship is tilting further now. I can hear things sliding and crashing below. The grand piano in the first-class lounge, the one where you said we'd dance at our wedding reception, can you imagine that now? It's probably careening across the floor like a wooden elephant. The crystal chandelier that impressed you so in the photographs, it's likely in pieces. But you know what's strange? I'm not thinking about the grandeur we're losing. I'm thinking about small things. The way the morning light came through the porthole in my cabin. The taste of the tea they served at breakfast. Too strong, nothing like the way you make it. The sound of children laughing in the corridors. The old gentleman who played chess in the smoking room, and always let me win the last game of the evening. I'm thinking about the book I was reading, Sherlock Holmes, The Adventure of Silver Blaze, still open on my bunk, bookmark carefully placed at page 47. I was savoring it, planning to finish it slowly during the crossing. Such a luxury I thought I had, rationing my pleasures. I'm thinking about the letter I started to you yesterday but didn't finish. It was full of trivial things, how well I slept, how fine the weather was, how I was looking forward to seeing the Statue of Liberty. I crumpled it up because it didn't seem worth sending. Not enough feeling in it, I thought. Not enough substance. What I wouldn't give to have written that letter differently, to have filled it with love instead of observations. To have told you how the sight of the ocean made me miss your eyes, how the rocking of the ship reminded me of dancing with you, how every sunset made me count the days until I could hold you again. But maybe this is better. Maybe this letter, written in desperation and salt water, will carry more of me to you than all the careful, proper letters I might have written from New York. The water's at my knees now. Phillips has finally stopped transmitting. He's sitting with his head in his hands, and I can see his shoulders shaking. He's thinking about someone too. A girl in Liverpool, he told me. They were going to be married when he finished this crossing. "Write to her for me," he just said. But his hands are steadier than mine now. He's going to write his own last words. "Eleanor, I need you to know some things. The ring, your grandmother's ring that I asked your father for, it's in the leather pouch in my jacket pocket. The jacket I gave to Mrs. Kelly. I hope she finds it someday and sells it for something her children need. I hope it buys them bread or school books or passage somewhere safe. I can't think of any better use for it. But I have something better for you. In this bottle, along with these pages, you'll find the photograph of you I kept in my wallet. The one where you're reading under the apple tree in your father's garden. You were so absorbed in your book, you didn't notice me watching. There was such peace on your face, such contentment. That's how I want to remember you, and that's how I want you to remember yourself when the grief gets heavy. You're going to grieve, my darling. Please don't feel guilty about it, and please don't feel guilty when it starts to ease. Grief is love with nowhere to go, and love is meant to flow, not stagnate. When you're ready, not because anyone tells you to be, but because your heart tells you, let it flow toward someone new. Let it flow toward the life you're meant to live. Marry someone who makes you laugh the way you made me laugh. Someone who notices when you hum. Someone who buys you books because he knows you'll lose yourself in them. Someone who understands that you always cry at happy endings, not sad ones. Because happy endings remind you how rare they are. But don't marry someone like me. Marry someone braver. Someone who doesn't wait for disaster to say what matters. Someone who tells you he loves you every morning, not just when he's about to die. Have children, Eleanor. Have them and tell them about their father who loved their mother so much he couldn't find words big enough to hold it all. Tell them their father was ordinary in every way, except for how extraordinary his love was for their mother. Tell them he was proud to die knowing that love would live on in them. And when they ask why he had to die, tell them that sometimes the world breaks in ways that can't be fixed, but love never breaks. Tell them love just changes shape. Tell them their father's love for their mother became their mother's love for them, and someday their love will change shape too, and the circle will keep going. Name the first boy Thomas, after your brother who died when we were children. Name the first girl Rose, because roses were blooming the day I knew I would marry you. But if those names carry too much sadness, choose new ones. Choose names that belong to the future, not the past. The water is at my chest now. My hands are so cold I can barely hold the pen. But I need to tell you the most important thing, the thing I should have said first and last and every moment in between. Eleanor Mary Hartwell, I love you. I love your terrible singing voice and your perfect laugh. I love the way you stack books on every available surface and forget where you put them. I love how you always cry at the endings of plays, even the comedies. I love your questions about everything. Why do birds fly south? How do they know which way south is? What do they think about while they're flying? I love your hands when you're kneading bread, covered in flour up to your wrists. I love your concentration when you're reading, the way you bite your lower lip without knowing it. I love your stubborn insistence on feeding every stray cat in London. I love your fierce loyalty to your friends and your fierce arguments with your father about politics. I love the way you say my name, like it's a prayer or a promise or both. I love waking up next to you on Sunday mornings when we don't have to be anywhere, when we can just lie there and plan our future and make each other laugh. I love the future we'll never have, and the past we did have, and this present moment where I get to love you one last time. The ship is groaning now like a living thing in pain. The lights have gone out, except for the emergency lamp above my head, and it's flickering like a candle in the wind. I can hear voices singing, "Abide with me," somewhere above. The voices are getting fewer, but they're not stopping. Eleanor, I'm going to put this letter in the bottle now. I'm going to seal it with wax from the candle in my cabin. The candle you helped me pack. The one you said I'd need for late-night writing. You were right about that, too. I'm going to throw it as far as I can into the darkness and trust that the ocean that's taking everything else will at least give you this. I'm going to trust that somewhere, somehow, these words will find their way to you. And then I'm going to go up on deck and help whoever still needs helping. I'm going to hold someone's hand if they're afraid. I'm going to sing with the singers if I can remember the words. I'm going to look up at the stars one last time and think about how we used to make up stories about the constellations. I'm going to die the way I lived, loving you with everything I have. Wait for me, my darling, not in grief, but in love, not in darkness, but in all the light you can find. When your time comes, years and years from now, after a life so full of joy it makes the angels jealous, wait for me. I'll be there in the place where love goes when it can no longer live in bodies. I'll be there with Mrs. Kelly's children and Philip's Liverpool girl and all the others who loved and were loved and believed love was stronger than water. I'll be there, and I'll have so much to tell you about what I learned in these final hours, about courage and kindness and how the human heart just keeps beating, keeps loving, keeps hoping, even when hope makes no logical sense. But mostly, I'll just want to hold you and dance with you and hear you laugh again. Until then, my love, until always, your William. Postscript. The water is over the desk now. I can barely see to write. But I need you to know I'm not afraid anymore. How can I be afraid when I'm carrying so much love? There isn't room for fear. Remember me. Remember us. Remember that once, for a little while, two people loved each other completely. and that was enough to light up the world. Found inside a wine bottle on the shores of Peggy's Cove, Nova Scotia, July 15, 1913. Bottle contained this letter, a photograph of a young woman reading under an apple tree, and a small silver locket engraved E.M.H. Letter, donated to the Maritime Museum of the Atlantic by Eleanor Hartwell Morrison, 1965. Lost letter. We are still here, somewhere under the ice. A letter discovered in 1981 by Inuit hunters, frozen in a tin box near King William Island. The paper bears strange markings and what appear to be human teeth, marks along the edges. To whoever finds this, to my children, I will never have, to the England that has forgotten us. I am the last one still writing, though Jameson died this morning and took with him the only remaining ink, which I have now made from soot and the blood from my gums. And I need you to know that we did not die as cowards. We did not die as the newspaper men will say we did, eating each other like animals in the snow. Though God help us, some of that is true too. My name is Thomas Hartwell, able seaman aboard HMS Erebus under Sir John Franklin, and I am writing this on the 15th day of June in the year of our Lord 1847, though time moves strangely here in this white hell. And I may be wrong about everything except that I am cold and I am dying, and I want someone to know we were here. The ships are gone now, crushed by the ice that never melts, never breaks, just sits there like God's own prison bars, squeezing and squeezing until the timbers scream. We heard the Erebus go in march, a sound like the world cracking in half. The terror lasted until April, and when she went down, she took 23 good men with her, men who'd been too weak to abandon ship, men who chose to die in their hammocks rather than face another day of walking. We've been walking ever since. 47 souls when we started. Now we are, I lose count. The cold makes thinking hard. Numbers swim away from me like fish under ice. But I remember other things. Strange how the mind works when the body is failing. I remember the smell of my mother's kitchen on Christmas morning. Bread bacon, oranges from Spain, the Christmas goose crackling in the hearth. I remember the sound of church bells in Portsmouth on Sunday mornings, calling the faithful to prayer. I remember a girl named Mary who kissed me before we sailed, tasted like strawberries and promises. All of that feels like someone else's life now, someone warmer. We dragged the boats across the ice for weeks, thinking we could reach the shipping lanes, thinking rescue ships would come with the spring. Sir John had been so certain we'd find the passage. God and the Queen's Navy men, he used to say, nothing can stop us when we have both on our side. But God lives somewhere warmer than this, I think. And the Queen's Navy is 10,000 miles away, sitting in parlors and drinking tea while we gnaw leather boots and dream of bread. The cold here isn't like any cold, you know. It's alive, this cold. It crawls inside you through your nose and mouth, settles in your chest like a wild animal, scratches at your ribs from the inside. Your spit freezes before it hits the ground. Your breath turns to ice in your beard. Your fingers stop belonging to you. They become these strange white things at the end of your arms that won't do what you tell them to do. Lieutenant Irving died yesterday, or was it last week? He'd been talking to his wife for 3 days, having full conversations with her, asking her opinion on which direction we should walk, apologizing for being late for dinner. Near the end, he was laughing at something she'd said, something only he could hear. When I asked him what was so funny, he looked at me like I was the mad one. "She says the pudding will be cold by the time I get home," he said, "but I told her not to worry. I'll be there for Christmas." He died smiling. That's something, I suppose. The officers kept up the pretense for longer than the rest of us. Morning inspections, evening prayers, careful rationing of food we didn't have. Commander Fitzjames still wore his uniform, brass buttons polished with spit and prayer. He'd call us to attention every morning, count us off like we was still a proper expedition instead of scarecrows stumbling across hell, but even he broke eventually. Last Tuesday, or was it Monday, I found him crying over his compass, great heaving sobs that froze on his cheeks before they could fall. The needle had stopped working, you see. Couldn't find magnetic north anymore, just spun in lazy circles pointing nowhere. "How do we get home if we don't know which way home is?" he kept asking. "How do we get home?" I didn't have an answer for that. The Eskimo found us twice. The first time back in April, they tried to help, offered us seal meat, fish, told us in their strange language which direction led to water that wasn't frozen. But Commander Fitzjames wouldn't hear of it. "We are British sailors," he said, "not beggars." He ordered us to give them some of our tins in trade, the tins that were already nearly empty, that had been keeping us alive. They looked at us like we were children playing at being men, which I suppose we were. The second time, they just watched us from a distance, a family, man, woman, 2 children, standing on a ridge about a mile away. They watched us for most of a day as we struggled with our sledges, as we fell and got up and fell again. Then they turned and walked away. I think they knew we were already dead. The mirages started last month, or maybe they've always been there and I'm just now crazy enough to see them. Entire cities rising out of the snow. London with its smoking chimneys and busy streets. Portsmouth Harbor full of ships. Green meadows where wild flowers grow and children play. Sometimes I see people I know. My brother William, who died of fever when we were boys. He waves at me from across impossible distances. My father, standing in the doorway of the house where I grew up, calling me in for supper. They feel so real, I try to walk toward them, but they always stay the same distance away, no matter how long I stumble through the snow. Yesterday, I saw a woman I didn't recognize. Dark hair, kind eyes, wearing a blue dress. She was hanging washing on a line, and when she saw me watching, she smiled and held up a child, a little boy with my father's nose. She mouthed something I couldn't hear, but I think she said, "Come home." I don't know who she is. I don't know who the child is. But I've been walking toward them ever since. We stopped burying the dead a week ago. Too much work, and the ground is iron anyway. We just leave them where they fall, and the snow covers them quickly enough. Nature's own shroud. Sometimes I think that's better than the churchyards back home, with their neat rows and careful headstones. Here, at least, they become part of something vast and clean. But it troubles me, leaving them like that. These were good men, men with wives and mothers and sweethearts, men who sang songs and told stories and worried about their debts. They deserve better than being forgotten under the ice. That's why I'm writing this, I think. So, someone will know their names. Robert Sinclair from Glasgow, who could play any tune on his mouth organ. He'd play Highland Mary every evening after supper, and we'd all pretend not to cry. He died singing. James Walker, who kept a pressed flower from his wife's garden in his Bible, he showed it to me once, a forget-me-not, blue as summer sky. He died with that Bible clutched to his chest. William Strong, who could tell jokes that made us laugh even when there was nothing to laugh about. Why did the sailor cross the ice? He'd ask. Because he was too stupid to go around it. He died laughing at his own joke. Charles Deville, our mate, who never complained, not once, not even when his feet froze black and he had to cut off his own toes with a rusty knife. He'd just set his jaw and keep walking. He died walking. And Sir John himself, God rest his soul. He died back in June of last year, early in our imprisonment, but not before he pulled each of us aside and told us he was proud to serve with us. You are the finest men the Navy has ever produced, he said to me, his hand shaking from the cold. England should be proud. I hope England remembers us as he did. I hope the newspaper men write that we died doing our duty, exploring the unknown for Queen and country. I hope they don't write about the things we had to do to stay alive as long as we did. But here's what I need to tell you, what I need someone to understand. We ate more than leather belts and boot soles in these final weeks. When Jameson died this morning, when I closed his frozen eyes and said a prayer over his body, I felt something break inside me. Not grief, though there was that too, but something deeper. The last thread connecting me to the man I used to be, the man who went to church on Sundays and said his prayers and believed in the sanctity of human flesh. I took out my knife. I looked at his body, thin as a scarecrow, but still meat, still sustenance. I thought about the woman in the blue dress, about the child who might be my son or grandson or great-grandson. I thought about living long enough to write these words. And I made a choice that will damn my soul to hell, but might let this letter reach someone who cares that we existed. I am not proud of this, but I am not ashamed either. Jameson would understand. In his final delirium, he kept talking about a Sunday roast his mother made, the crackling skin, the rich gravy. Just one more bite, he whispered. Just one more. So I gave him what he asked for. I gave us both one more bite. The meat tastes like nothing, like silence made solid. But it's kept me alive long enough to write this letter, and maybe that's enough purpose for a man's soul. Maybe God judges us not by the desperate things we do to survive, but by why we choose to survive at all. I choose to survive to tell you this. We were not monsters. We were men pushed beyond the boundaries of what men should endure. And if we became something else in the end, something hungry and wild and desperate, it was because we refused to let the ice erase us completely. We are still here, somewhere under the ice. Not our bodies. Those will be gone soon enough, scattered by wind and wolves and time, but the parts of us that matter, the parts that loved and hoped and remembered the taste of strawberries, those are still here, frozen in this moment, waiting for someone to find this letter and know that we existed. My fingers are too numb to hold the pen much longer. The words are getting harder to form. But I need to tell you about the aurora. It came last night. Great curtains of green and blue and silver dancing across the sky like God's own theater. We all stopped walking, all 6 of us who were left, and just stood there watching. After so many months of white and gray and endless nothing, here was beauty beyond imagining. Colors that don't exist in the world we knew. "Look at that," whispered Peterson, who hasn't spoken in 3 days. "Just look at that." And for a moment, we forgot about the cold and the hunger and the fear. For a moment, we remembered why we came here in the first place, not for glory or gold or the promise of our names in history books, but for this, for the chance to see something no human eyes had ever seen before, for the privilege of standing at the edge of the world and witnessing its wonders. The aurora danced for hours. We watched until our feet went completely numb, until we had to move or freeze to death standing there. But none of us wanted to look away. It felt like saying goodbye to something sacred. When it finally faded, Peterson turned to me and said, "That was worth it. All of this, the cold, the fear, everything, that was worth it." He died in his sleep 2 hours later, still smiling. I think about that a lot now as I sit here writing by the light of our last candle stub. Was it worth it? Would I make the same choice again, knowing what I know now about the cost? The answer changes depending on when you ask me. When the pain gets too bad, when the hunger feels like a living thing gnawing at my insides, when I can't remember what warmth feels like, then no, nothing could be worth this. But when I remember the aurora, when I think about the woman in the blue dress and the child who might carry my father's nose into a future I'll never see, when I imagine someone reading these words and understanding that we were here, that we mattered, then yes, it was worth it. Because here's what they don't tell you about dying. It's not the ending that matters, it's what you choose to leave behind. And I choose to leave behind this truth, that even in the coldest, darkest, most God-forsaken place on earth, human beings can still find reasons to hope, still find beauty worth dying for, still find love worth living for, even when living becomes impossible. The candle is almost gone now. My hand is shaking so badly I can barely form the letters. But I have one more thing to say, one more message for whoever finds this. Tell them we went looking for a passage to the other side of the world, and we found something better. We found the limits of human endurance, and we found that there are no limits. We found the depths of human cruelty, and we found that even the depths have love in them. We found the edge of the earth, and we found that the earth has no edges, just endless possibilities stretching out like the aurora into forever. Tell them Thomas Hartwell was here. Tell them we were all here. Tell them we saw wonders. Tell them we loved each other even at the end, especially at the end. The wind is picking up again. I can hear it howling across the ice like the voices of all the men who died here calling to the ones still dying. Maybe that's what happens when you freeze to death in a place this remote. You become part of the wind, part of the endless song the ice sings to itself. If that's true, then listen carefully when you walk in winter. Listen for our voices in the storm. We'll be there, telling you stories about the aurora, teaching you the words to Highland Mary, reminding you that love is the only thing that survives the cold. I'm going to put this letter in the tin box with the last of our navigational charts. Maybe someone will find it someday. Maybe they'll understand what we tried to do here, what we became in trying to do it. The candle just went out, but the aurora is back, brighter than ever, and by its light I can see her, the woman in the blue dress, closer now, close enough to touch. She's holding out her hand to me, and she's smiling like she's been waiting her whole life for me to come home. I'm going to follow her now. I'm going to see where she leads. We are still here somewhere under the ice. Remember us. Remember that we were not afraid at the end. Remember that we found love in hell. Thomas Hartwell, able seaman, HMS Erebus. God save the Queen. Found sealed in a tin box near Starvation Cove, King William Island, by Inuit hunters Moses Koihawk and Peter Konguk, April 1981. The letter was preserved by the extreme cold. Forensic analysis confirmed the ink was made from a mixture of soot and human blood. 3 human molars were found in the tin box alongside the letter. The document is currently housed at the National Maritime Museum, Greenwich. In 2014, the wreck of HMS Erebus was discovered by Parks Canada. HMS Terra was found in 2016. Both ships showed evidence of the crew's attempts to survive after abandonment, confirming many details in Hartwell's account. Lost letter. They said the island was empty. They lied. A letter discovered in 1987 by marine biologists studying coral formations near Palmyra Atoll. The pages were found wrapped in oilcloth inside a rusted tobacco tin, stained with what appeared to be blood and seawater. A child's crayon drawing was folded between the pages. My dearest Margaret, they said the island was empty when they dropped me here 6 weeks ago, but I can hear children laughing in the trees at night, and this morning I found small footprints in the sand that weren't there when I went to sleep, leading from the lagoon straight to my shelter and back again, as if someone very small came to watch me dream. The funny thing is, I'm not afraid of them anymore. I should explain how I got here, though I'm not sure you'll believe me. Hell, I'm not sure I believe it myself, and I'm the one living it. My name is still James Mitchell. I'm still your husband of 12 years. I still remember the way you hum Blue Moon when you're hanging laundry on Tuesday mornings. But everything else about the man you married has been changed by this place. It started when the Hawkins Aviation Company offered me that survey job in the Pacific. Just 3 months, they said, mapping the uninhabited islands for potential airstrips. Good money, Jimmy. Enough to finally buy that little house in Portland you've been dreaming about. You didn't want me to go, do you remember? You said you had a feeling, one of those feelings that always turn out right. But I laughed it off, kissed your worried forehead, and promised to write every week. I kept that promise, at least for the first month. Posted letters from Honolulu, then from Samoa, then from the last civilized port before we headed into the deep Pacific. After that, there was nowhere to post anything, so I kept writing anyway, in my journal, planning to give you all the pages when I got home. Funny how a man can plan for a future that doesn't exist. The crash happened on a Tuesday. I remember that because I was thinking about you humming your laundry song when the engine started coughing. Pete Rodriguez, the pilot, good man, had 3 kids back in San Diego. He tried everything to keep us in the air, but the engine seized up complete, and we came down hard in the lagoon of this little atoll. Pete didn't make it out of the cockpit. The impact, well, I won't burden you with those details. I managed to drag some supplies from the wreckage before it sank. A canvas tarp, some canned goods, matches in a waterproof tin, this fountain pen, and a few sheets of letterhead from the aviation company. Not much to start a new life with, but more than some men get. That first week, I thought it was just a matter of time before the rescue planes found me. The company knew our route, knew we were overdue. I built signal fires, spelled out SOS with coral chunks on the beach, kept myself busy with all the things a sensible man does when he's temporarily stranded. But then the footprints started appearing. Small ones, like a child's bare feet, but perfectly formed. Not the broad, splayed prints you'd expect from someone who'd never worn shoes, but narrow, delicate, the feet of a child who'd once known patent leather Sunday shoes and cotton stockings. They'd appear overnight, always leading from the jungle to my shelter, circling it 3 times, then heading back toward the island's interior. I followed them once, early on, when I was still thinking logically about things. The trail led through thick vegetation, past fruit trees heavy with breadfruit and coconuts, along what might have once been a path. But the footprints always disappeared at a clearing in the center of the island, a perfect circle of bare earth surrounded by flowering trees I couldn't identify. Trees that hummed, Margaret, I swear to you they hummed, low and sweet like a mother's lullaby. That's where I first heard the laughing. High and bright, the sound children make when they're playing games only they understand. Hide and seek, maybe, or tag. The kind of innocent joy that makes adults remember what it felt like to believe in magic. I called out, "Hello? Is someone there?" But the laughing stopped immediately, and the only answer was the wind in those strange humming trees. I told myself it was tropical birds, or the wind through hollow bamboo, or my mind playing tricks after the trauma of the crash. Sensible explanations for sensible men who don't believe in ghost children on impossible islands. But then I started finding the presents. Every morning by my shelter, there'd be something new. A perfect shell, spiral-shaped and pink as dawn. A flower I'd never seen before, with petals that stayed fresh for days despite the heat. Once, a small fish, already cleaned and ready to cook, still wet from the lagoon, always placed carefully, deliberately, like offerings, or like gifts from children who wanted to help but didn't know how to show themselves. I tried staying awake to catch them at it, but I'd always fall asleep despite myself and wake to find something new waiting. A piece of coral shaped like a star. A coconut with holes poked through it in a pattern that almost looked like a face. Small things, but chosen with thought, with care, with a kind of love that doesn't ask for anything back. Margaret, do you remember when little Susan from next door used to bring you dandelions? How she'd present them so seriously, like they were roses from the finest garden? How she'd watch your face to see if you were pleased? That's what this felt like, a child's earnest desire to share something beautiful. The dream started in the 3rd week. I'd dream I was walking through the island at night, and I wasn't alone. Small hands would slip into mine, tugging me gently toward places I'd never seen in daylight. Gardens where phosphorescent flowers bloomed. Pools where the water glowed blue-green like captured starlight. Trees that bore fruit that tasted like childhood summers, like the strawberry ice cream we bought from that truck that played Turkey in the Straw. In these dreams, I could see them clearly. 5 children, maybe 6, dressed in clothes from different eras, a little girl in a Victorian pinafore, her hair in perfect ringlets, a boy in knickers and suspenders that looked like they belonged in the 20s, another girl in a simple dress that might have been from the 1850s. They were beautiful children, with bright eyes and ready smiles, and they chattered constantly in languages I should have recognized but somehow couldn't quite understand. They'd show me things, hidden caves filled with perfectly preserved artifacts, ship's wheels, brass compasses, leather-bound books, and languages that looked familiar but read like nonsense. They'd point to paintings on cave walls, crude drawings that seemed to tell a story I was always on the verge of understanding but never quite grasped. When I'd wake from these dreams, I'd find sand in my hair and salt water on my feet. My shoes would be wet, though I was certain I'd gone to sleep dry. And always, always, there'd be a new gift waiting by my shelter. I began to look forward to the dreams more than I looked forward to waking. The days became a strange routine. I'd collect rainwater, gather fruit, tend my signal fire, the practical business of staying alive. But my real life happened at night, in dreams that felt more real than reality. I'd walk with my invisible children through their secret island, and they'd show me wonders. They showed me where the ship went down, not my plane, but an older vessel, a merchant ship from the looks of her. The masts still stood, draped in coral and sea anemones, home now to schools of brilliant fish. They showed me the captain's quarters, where a Bible lay open to Psalm 23, its pages somehow still legible despite decades underwater. They showed me other wrecks too, older ones, ships from different centuries, different countries, a Spanish galleon, a Chinese junk, a whaling vessel with New Bedford painted on her stern, and newer ones, a yacht that couldn't have been down more than a few years, her radio still crackling with static. How many ships had found this place? How many people had landed here, lived here, died here, and how many had chosen to stay? Because that's what I began to understand, Margaret. This wasn't a story of tragedy, not entirely. Some of these people, maybe all of them, had chosen to remain, had found something here worth more than whatever they'd left behind. The children showed me their gardens in the island's interior, places where impossible things grew, roses that bloomed year-round, apple trees heavy with fruit, though we were thousands of miles from any climate where apples should grow. Vegetable patches tended with obvious care, providing everything a small community might need. They showed me the houses, not the crude shelters you'd expect from castaways, but proper houses, small ones, cottage-sized, built from island stone and driftwood, but constructed with skill and love, each one different, reflecting the personality of its builder. A Victorian cottage with gingerbread trim made from carved coral. A simple cabin with a wide porch perfect for watching sunsets. A round house with a sod roof where flowers grew. The houses were empty during my dream walks, but they were maintained, clean, ready for inhabitants who might return at any moment. "Where is everyone?" I asked the children once, and the little girl in the pinafore smiled and pointed at me, then at herself, then at the others, as if the question made no sense. That's when I began to understand what she meant. I started spending my days exploring areas I'd only visited in dreams, following paths that seemed to know where I wanted to go before I did. I found the gardens exactly as I'd seen them, the houses standing empty but cared for, the workshop where someone had been building a boat, not a crude raft, but a proper sailing vessel nearly finished. I found the cemetery. It was in a grove of flowering trees, the graves marked not with traditional headstones, but with beautiful sculptures carved from island stone. a ship's wheel for someone who'd loved the sea, a pair of wings for someone who'd dreamed of flying, a book for someone who'd lived in stories. Each grave was lovingly tended, surrounded by flowers that bloomed out of season. But here's the strange part, Margaret. There weren't enough graves for all the ships I'd seen. That night, I asked the children directly, "How many people live on this island?" The boy in knickers grinned and began counting on his fingers, pointing first to his companions, then to places I couldn't see, then to me. When he reached 27, he stopped and nodded, satisfied. "Where are the others?" I asked. He pointed toward the houses, then toward the gardens, then toward the workshop where the boat waited. Then he took my hand and led me to a mirror-still pool at the island center, surrounded by those humming trees. "Look," he said, and his voice was clear as a bell, though I was certain he'd never spoken aloud before. I looked into the pool and saw myself, but not as I am now, thin, sunburned, wearing the same clothes I've had on for 6 weeks. I saw myself as I could be, healthy, happy, home. Not home in Portland with you, Margaret, though God knows I've missed you every moment of every day. But home here, in this impossible place where lost things go to be found again. The island chooses," the little girl whispered. "Some people it lets go. Some people it keeps. Some people it gives a choice." "What kind of choice?" I asked. She smiled, and in her smile I saw patience that belonged to someone much older. The choice to stop being lost. That was 3 nights ago, and I haven't dreamed since. Instead, I've been thinking about you, about the life we built together, about the man I was before I crashed here, about the man I might become if I stayed. The rescue plane came yesterday. I saw it from miles away, heard the engine long before it appeared over the horizon. I ran to my signal fire, made sure the smoke was visible, spelled out SOS on the beach with pieces of coral, did everything a reasonable man should do to attract attention. The plane circled twice. I waved my arms, shouted myself hoarse, jumped up and down like a madman. The pilot waggled his wings. He'd seen me. He'd marked my position. He'd report back to Honolulu, and within days, there'd be a rescue boat here to take me home. I should have been overjoyed. Instead, I found myself crying because I realized something as I watched that plane disappear into the blue. I didn't want to be rescued, not anymore. The life I left behind, our life, Margaret, it was a good life, full of small pleasures and quiet contentment. Sunday mornings with coffee and the newspaper, evenings on the porch, you with your knitting, me with my magazines, the promise of children someday, a bigger house, maybe a dog. It was everything a sensible man should want. But it wasn't magic. It wasn't impossible gardens and humming trees and children who existed between sleeping and waking. It wasn't a place where lost things went to be found, where broken people went to be healed, where the lonely went to discover they'd never really been alone at all. I know how this sounds, Margaret. I know you're reading this and thinking your husband has lost his mind, been driven mad by isolation and guilt over Pete's death. Maybe you're right. Maybe this is all elaborate self-deception, my mind's way of coping with the unbearable reality of being stranded. But if it is madness, it's the most beautiful madness I've ever known. The children are showing themselves to me now in daylight. No more gifts left secretly, no more dreams that might not be dreams. They're here, Margaret, as real as anything I've ever known. They help me tend the gardens, show me how to catch fish in the lagoon, teach me songs in languages I'm learning to understand. They've been waiting for me, they say, waiting for someone who could see them, who could help them tend this place. They've been alone for so long. Not lonely, never lonely in a place like this, but alone in their responsibilities. Because that's what this is, I understand now. This island is a refuge, a place where the lost find purpose, where the broken find healing, where the forgotten find remembrance. The children are its guardians, and they've been looking for someone to share the work, someone to help them care for the people who find their way here. The rescue boat will come within the week, I'm sure of it. They'll search every reef and atoll in a 100-mile radius until they find me. And when they do, I'll have to choose, go back to the life I knew or stay in the life I've found. Margaret, my darling, I wish I could explain this in a way that wouldn't break your heart. I wish I could make you understand that this isn't about not loving you, because I do love you more than I've ever loved anything. You are the finest woman I've ever known, the kindest heart, the bravest spirit. Any man would be lucky to call you his wife. But I'm not just any man anymore. I'm a man who's seen impossible things. I'm a man who's been chosen by something bigger than himself. I'm a man who's found his purpose in caring for a magical place that exists between the real world and the world of dreams. The children need me, Margaret, and God help me, I need them too. If you're reading this, it means I made my choice. It means the rescue boat came and found my shelter empty, found only this letter weighed down with coral and a child's drawing tucked between the pages. Look at that drawing carefully, my love. It's a picture of me, but not alone. I'm surrounded by children, all of us standing in front of a house with flowers growing on the roof, all of us smiling. The little girl drew it for you, she said, so you'd know I was happy, so you'd know I was home. I wish I could ask you to understand. I wish I could ask you to forgive me. I wish I could ask you to be happy for me. But I know that's too much to ask of any heart, let alone one as generous as yours. Instead, I'll ask you this. Live, Margaret. Live the beautiful life you deserve. Find someone who can love you the way you should be loved, completely, without reservation, without the restless wandering that always lived in my heart. Marry him, have children with him, be happy in ways I never could have made you. And sometimes, when you hear children laughing on warm summer nights, when you see impossible flowers blooming out of season, when you catch yourself humming songs you don't remember learning, think of me. Think of your Jimmy, who found his way to a place where lost things go to be found, where broken hearts go to heal, where love takes forms that don't fit in the ordinary world. I'm not lost anymore, my darling. For the first time in my life, I know exactly where I belong. The rescue boat is coming. I can see its smoke on the horizon. Time to go inland, time to join my new family in their hidden gardens and impossible houses. Time to begin the work I was meant to do. Watch for us in your dreams, Margaret. We'll be there, tending our magical island, caring for the lost ones who find their way to us. And someday, when your time in the ordinary world is done, maybe you'll find your way here too. Maybe you'll understand then what I couldn't explain now. I love you. I will always love you. But love sometimes means choosing something bigger than yourself, even when that choice breaks every heart involved. The children are calling my name. It's time to go home. Tell my mother the roses she planted are blooming here year-round. Tell her I think of her Sunday roast every time I smell the flowering trees. Tell her I'm taking care of children now, lots of children, and they make me laugh every day. She'll understand. The boats are here. I can hear the engines. Time to disappear. Remember me with joy, my love. I'm exactly where I need to be. Your Jimmy, who is lost no longer. The rescue vessel, USS Heron, searched the atoll for 3 days, but found no trace of James Mitchell beyond this letter and basic survival equipment. The child's drawing mentioned in the letter shows a man surrounded by 5 figures, standing before a structure that appears to be a house with unusual architecture. No such buildings were observed on the island during the search. Margaret Mitchell remarried in 1941 to a school teacher named Robert Hayes. She kept this letter until her death in 1976, when it was found among her papers with a note. For someone who will understand that love takes many forms, not all of them meant for this world. The island described in the letter has never been definitively identified, though several uncharted atolls in the region match aspects of Mitchell's description. Marine biologists continue to report unusual phenomena in the area, including plant species that should not exist in the Pacific climate zone.